I'm an omega. The day after my 18th birthday, I was forced to marry an alpha I'd been engaged to since childhood. On our wedding night, I hugged my pillow and told him, let's sleep in separate rooms for now. We barely know each other. The alpha, who was rumored to be very cold and aloof, gave a blank nod. But just as I reached the door, a barrage of floating captions, danmaku, suddenly appeared before my eyes. TSK TSK TSK, he's just afraid that if they share a bed, he won't be able to control himself. He secretly smelled his wife's hair just now. Poor guy's probably taking an ice-cold shower later. I turned back to glance at the expressionless alpha. 01. Wait, him? I blinked, wondering if I was still drunk from last night. Then I hugged my pillow and went to the guest room next door. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. It still didn't feel real, this whole being married thing. Just yesterday I'd been celebrating my 18th birthday. And the next morning I woke up and got legally married. I couldn't help sighing. Life really was something else. 02. Heath is 4 years older than me. We were engaged when we were kids. But I never really took it seriously. Later, he went abroad to study. The last time I saw him was a year ago, when he came back for a visit. I never thought the next time we'd meet, he'd be my husband. But we hardly knew each other. And he, probably only agreed to this marriage for the sake of his family, right? The engagement had always been something our elders forced upon us. Now, my grandfather, the one who loves me most, is seriously ill. His only wish was to see me get married. At first, I really didn't want to. But seeing him lying in that hospital bed, hair all white, I ended up nodding through tear-filled eyes. And just like that, Heath and I took our wedding photos and got our marriage certificate. In the photo, Heath had a cold, stiff expression. As for me, I only managed a textbook smile. 03. When I woke up, Heath had already made breakfast. He was sitting at the table, long fingers wrapped around a coffee cup. He looked up at the sound of my footsteps. You're up. Wash up and come eat. Okay. Still not used to sharing a space with him, I mumbled back and slipped into the bathroom. When I came out, Heath was standing by the window on a call. His tone was cool and serious, sounded like something important. I sat down and glanced at the table, and froze. Perfectly toasted sandwiches, an iced latte, and freshly washed green grapes. All my favorites. I took a bite of the sandwich, crispy on the outside, melted cheese and ham on the inside. Surprisingly delicious. I couldn't help looking up at him. Heath had just ended the call and, noticing my gaze, asked casually. Not to your taste? No, I hesitated, it's really good. Thanks. He gave a quiet and took a sip of his coffee. And then, more danmaku flew across my vision. TSK TSK TSK, pretending again, huh? Secretly thrilled that his wife likes his cooking. Wants to stare at her but only dares to sneak glances. Heath, seriously. Pfft, I nearly choked. What the hell is all this? I looked up at Heath in confusion. And met his eyes. His pupils shrank slightly, like he hadn't expected me to look up just then. Even his hand holding the coffee cup stiffened for a second. After a few seconds of silence, his expression returned to normal. You've got salad dressing on your lip. Reflexively, I stuck out my tongue and licked the corner of my mouth. Sweet, there really was dressing there. I was just about to thank him when Heath suddenly stood up and said, voice low and hoarse. Finish eating, I'll drive you to school. No need, I can. It's on the way. He cut me off, his tone leaving no room for argument. Then added, a little more gently. It's raining today. I looked out the window, sunny skies, not a single cloud. By the time I looked back, he was already heading to the front door, back straight. The tips of his ears looked a little red. Weird, it's not even hot today. 04. I was scrolling on my phone, but my eyes kept drifting to the alpha in the driver's seat. Heath rested one hand on the steering wheel, his profile sharp and cold. From the moment we got in the car, we hadn't said a word. I exhaled quietly, the silence was starting to feel awkward. Finally, the car slowed to a stop at the school gates. I let out a silent sigh of relief and reached for my seatbelt. Then he spoke. "You've got 2 classes this afternoon. I'll pick you up afterward." My hand froze. How does he know my schedule? "You really don't have to go out of your way," I said quickly. "I live on campus, I'll just go back to the dorm." Living on campus isn't good for building a relationship. Heath turned to me, his voice calm. "I suggest you stay at home instead." I opened my mouth, not sure how to respond. Then the danmaku hit again. He just wants to see his pretty wife every day but needs a reason. LOL, acting all cool but secretly memorized her hobbies and class schedule. I nearly choked again. Heath frowned slightly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I panicked, pushing open the car door. "I'm heading to class now." After running about 10 meters, I suddenly turned back. The black car was still parked in the same spot, the window rolled halfway down. More danmaku came flooding in. LOL, he really doesn't want to leave. Heath, even the way she runs is adorable. My face flushed, and I hurried into the classroom. 05. As soon as I stepped into the classroom, my best friend and college roommate, Heath, waved at me from the last row. "He's an Omega too. Drake. Over here." The moment I sat down, he immediately grilled me about where I'd been yesterday and why I didn't reply to any messages. I stared silently at the desk for a while before finally mustering the courage to say, "Keith, I got married." "What the hell? When did that happen?" Keith stared at me in disbelief, eyes wide. "Yesterday." It all happened so fast, I was still trying to process it myself, so I didn't get the chance to tell you. I picked at the palm of my hand while explaining everything to him. He frowned and asked, "So, the guy you married, is he at least good looking?" I pictured Heath's face in my mind and nodded. "Yeah, he's pretty handsome." Keith's brows finally relaxed a little. "Alright, that's something. If he's rich and attractive, you can always build the feelings later. One more thing." He glanced around and leaned in to whisper in my ear. "Are things, good between you two?" I looked confused. "What do you mean things?" Keith blushed slightly. "I mean, haven't you slept together yet?" My ears instantly burned. I stammered. "And no. We just got our marriage certificate yesterday. It's way too soon for that." Keith rubbed his chin, deep in thought. "Fair. But since you're married, it's only a matter of time, right?" I honestly couldn't even imagine it, Heath, with his iceberg expression, doing that. He really doesn't give off any passionate vibes. 06. Right before the last class ended, Heath texted me. "Heading out now. We'll be there in about 10 minutes. Short and to the point, no extra emotion. After class, Keith helped me pack up a few things in the dorm. There wasn't much, just my laptop and some clothes. As I walked out of the dorm building, I spotted the black car parked under a tree from a distance. Keith grabbed my wrist. "Is that your husband's car? That thing's worth, like, 10 million. "Yeah." I nodded, and then the danmaku flashed again. Wow, someone showed up half an hour early, but told his wife he was just heading out. And he brought her favorite matcha latte, less ice, 30% sugar, with cheese foam. When I got closer and opened the car door, sure enough, there was a matcha drink waiting by the passenger seat. Behind me, Keith tugged frantically at my sleeve, whispering, "Oh my God, he's so hot, he's so hot." Blushing, I made the introductions. "This is my friend Keith." "Nice to meet you," Heath nodded slightly. "I'm Drake's husband, Heath. Maybe we could all grab dinner together?" I suggested, trying to ease the tension. Keith shook his head like a spinning top. Actually, I just remembered I've got a date. He leaned in and whispered. I'm not about to be a third wheel. I'll leave you two alone. With that, he bolted. The moment the door shut, Heath suddenly leaned over. You didn't buckle up. His cool cedar-scented pheromones wrapped around me. I froze as his long fingers reached across to pull the seatbelt into place. Click. All set. His Adam's apple moved slightly as he straightened up and started the car like nothing happened. Danmaku floated past again. Pretending to help with the seatbelt, but secretly just wanted to get close. Heath, your breathing got heavier there. That distance just now. If y'all don't kiss, I swear. Blushing, I took a big sip of matcha. Weird, why is my heart racing like this? 07. In the days that followed, Heath and I maintained a polite, respectful distance. It had been 2 weeks since the wedding, and we were still sleeping in separate rooms. He picked me up and dropped me off every day, and most of the time, he cooked himself. In this relationship, he was pretty much the perfect alpha partner. One morning, on the way to school, he mentioned that he'd be going on a business trip for a few days. There's food in the fridge I've already prepared. Just heat it up before eating. Okay. I nodded and glanced at the alpha in the driver's seat. At this point, I was getting spoiled by Heath's cooking. It suited my taste too well. When will you be back? The moment I asked, I regretted it. It sounded like I was hoping he'd come back soon. Heath's lips curved ever so slightly. The night after tomorrow. Then danmaku appeared again. He, someone's quietly enjoying the attention. Heath internally, you guys don't get it, my wife's asking when I'll be home. He'd take his wife with him if he could. He paused and added. If anything happens, call me right away. I nodded, a warm feeling blooming in my chest. 08. The second afternoon after Heath left for his trip. A strange heat suddenly crept up my spine. I was sitting on the couch watching TV when the unexplained warmth made me unbutton the top of my shirt. The AC was clearly on, but sweat still trickled down the back of my neck, soaking my collar. Weird. I mumbled and got up to pour a glass of cold water. But the moment I stood, my legs gave out and I collapsed back onto the couch. Dizziness hit me like a wave, and the gland on the back of my neck started throbbing. In that moment, the first person I thought of was Heath. Fumbling for my phone, I shakily dialed his number. Drake? His voice crackled slightly through the line. Heath. My voice trembled, my hand clutching the couch cushion tightly. I don't feel well. What's wrong? His tone immediately turned tense, and the background noise disappeared. It sounded like he'd stepped into a quiet space. Hot, it's so hot. I could barely describe what I was feeling, everything was out of control, and my gland ached with every beat. My neck hurts, and I feel so weak. I could hear his breathing pick up, and then Heath spoke again, his voice low and restrained. It might be your heat cycle starting. I'm coming back right now. 09. I don't know how long I'd been out when the sudden sound of the front door slamming open jolted me awake from the fog in my mind. Drake. Heath practically rushed in, his suit jacket gone, his tie hanging loose around his neck, sweat dampening the strands of hair on his forehead. I had never seen him like this before, always so calm and collected, but now his face was full of panic. He took quick steps over to the sofa, dropping to one knee to check on me. The next second, I was swept up in his arms, held horizontally. The scent of cedar wrapped around me instantly, and I could feel the warmth of the alpha's body through his clothes. Instinctively, I buried myself in his embrace, pressing my nose against the hollow of his neck, greedily inhaling his pheromones. The doctor's on the way, hang in there. His voice was deeper than usual, his Adam's apple rolling near my lips, before he gently laid me on the bed. 10 minutes later, the family doctor arrived and put on gloves to examine the glands on my neck, frowning more and more. Heath, your partner's gland development is somewhat abnormal. Since this is the first heat cycle, I don't recommend using inhibitors. It's better to soothe her with alpha pheromones and other calming methods. After the doctor left, Heath returned to the bedside and carefully lay down beside me. His arms wrapped around my waist, releasing more of the thick cedar pheromone that blended with my own citrus scent. The whole room was filled with a warm, humid atmosphere. "Feeling any better now?" he asked softly. I shook my head, my tear-blurred eyes rubbing against him. "I feel terrible, please help me." His breathing grew heavier, but he only lowered his head and kissed my forehead gently. "Just a little longer, I'll go get a damp towel." The burning heat of the heat cycle consumed my reason, leaving only instinct to guide my actions. "Don't go." Panicked, I tilted my head up and kissed his lips, awkwardly licking the corners. The alpha's muscles tensed instantly, his hand gripping my waist trembling slightly. The kiss eased the burning for a moment, but then the overwhelming heat surged back. I cried as I tried to pull at his belt, but he held my wrist firmly. "Do you know what you're doing right now?" I blinked in confusion, when suddenly a flood of danmaku appeared. "How can you resist such a sweet, soft wife? What's wrong with you? Upstairs, you don't get it. This is love with restraint. He thinks his wife doesn't like him and doesn't want to take advantage. He's about to explode though. Soon he'll be pumping her full of inhibitors till he's sick of it." I tried to make sense of what the danmaku said. A wet, warm sensation suddenly touched my neck. Heath's tongue gently licked my gland, making me shiver all over. But the expected pain didn't come. He didn't bite. He adjusted his position, pulling me closer into his arms. His pheromones steadied, and Heath stroked my hair again and again gently, saying, "Right now, your decisions are influenced by the heat. I can't do this while you're not fully aware." 10. Surrounded by the cedar scent, the raging heat of the cycle finally subsided. I leaned drowsily against Heath's chest, listening to his strong heartbeat as I slowly fell asleep. When I woke up again, Heath was gone from the bed. I opened my eyes groggily and realized I had changed into clean pajamas, and the sheets were fresh. My body felt cleaner than before. Heath must have helped me wash. The thought made my ears burn. Although we'd been married for a while, we kept a polite distance. Last night's intimacy shattered all previous boundaries. I sat up carefully. The glands at the back of my neck still throbbed, but not as fiercely as yesterday. I tiptoed to the bathroom to splash water on my face and wake up a bit. Just as I reached the door, I heard the sound of running water inside. Heath was standing at the sink washing something by hand. He wore a simple white t-shirt and gray pajama pants, the muscles on his back and shoulders clearly defined. When I saw what he was holding, a rush of warmth flooded my head. It was my underwear. I had indeed messed up during the heat cycle last night. But I never expected Heath to personally wash it. The alpha's sharp hearing caught my movement. He turned calmly as always. "Awake?" Heath turned off the faucet. "Still feeling unwell anywhere?" "Yesterday, thank you. I feel much better now." My gaze involuntarily dropped to the small piece of fabric in his hand. I stammered, "You could have used the washing machine." Heath nonchalantly hung the clean underwear on the drying rack. For close-fitting clothes like this, hand washing is cleaner. Just then, a few lines of translucent danmaku floated in front of me. If Drake had come a few minutes earlier, she'd have seen her husband at his peak. LOL, sniffing himself again so early in the morning. Such a cold face while washing underwear, so literal. Heath on the outside, just doing laundry. Actually, secretly sniffing his wife's underwear, ha. My head buzzed. What were these danmaku even talking about? But my eyes still couldn't help but glance down at Heath's pajama pants. The thin fabric couldn't hide the obvious bulge. I quickly looked away, terrified. That size is definitely unfair. 11. So, what happened between you two these past few days? Heath dragged out the question, his smirking face making my ears burn instantly. It was my first day back in class after taking 3 days off, and I knew I couldn't escape the king of gossip's interrogation. There weren't many people in the classroom yet, but Heath purposely lowered his voice, making me nervously look around. After confirming no one was paying attention, I answered barely above a whisper. Nothing, just kissing and hugging. What? Heath suddenly raised his voice, then quickly covered his mouth, eyes wide as saucers. Is your husband not good in bed or something? Sure. I panicked, covering his mouth, but the image of that morning scene suddenly popped into my head. My face flushed hotter, voice barely audible. Probably not. Heath caught on to my discomfort and grinned mischievously, leaning closer. Oh? Looks like Drake saw something she wasn't supposed to. Nonsense. I pushed him away hastily. So, Drake, what do you feel about him now? I fiddled with my palm. I guess I don't dislike him. Heath smiled and said. Don't dislike? Then that means you like him, right? He lowered his voice. Admit it, you've fallen for Heath. Falling for someone, that phrase hit my heart like a stone dropping into a calm lake, sending ripples through my soul. I thought back over our time together, realizing I was indeed becoming more and more dependent on him. And that feeling of being treasured, it was truly addictive. 12. At night, I stood at the bedroom door holding a pillow. Heath was sitting against the headboard, dressed in deep blue silk pajamas, reading some documents. Hearing the noise, he looked up and asked. What's wrong? I swallowed nervously, hugging the pillow tighter. Though the heat cycle was over and we technically didn't need to share a room anymore, the cold emptiness of the guest bed suddenly felt unbearable. Well, I slowly moved to the bed. Maybe we should still sleep in the same room? Why? Heath took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Being asked so directly made my ears burn. I couldn't very well say I wanted to sleep with him. Because it helps build the relationship, I finally offered the formal excuse. Since we're already married, we should nurture the relationship. Okay. His reply was short and firm. He stood and took the pillow from my arms. In the dark, every sense felt heightened. I lay stiffly on my back, hearing Heath's steady breathing. I smelled his faint cedar scent mixed with the fresh aroma of his body wash. By the weak moonlight, I observed the alpha beside me. His sleeping face was softer than usual, the lines of his nose strikingly handsome in the dim light. Why did his face seem more beautiful the more I looked? I couldn't resist reaching out to gently touch his cheek, then slowly tracing down the contour to his lips. The memory of kissing here during my uncontrolled heat a few days ago suddenly came alive. Heath's lips were softer than they looked. His lips twitched slightly under my fingertip. I quickly withdrew my hand, shyly watching for his reaction. But his breathing stayed steady, his chest rising and falling rhythmically. He seemed fast asleep. Just then, danmaku floated in front of me. Drake doesn't know her husband is pretending to sleep, does she? Wife wants to share a bed, how can he possibly sleep? Heath is not just a ninja but a master actor. But can he keep this up without getting sick? My face flushed red. Heath was pretending to sleep. That was so awkward. I quietly shrank under the covers. If that's the case, I'd pretend to sleep too. I closed my eyes for a while but still couldn't fall asleep. Suddenly, the mattress dipped slightly, someone beside me was sitting up. Then a featherlight kiss landed on my cheek. The soft touch barely lingered but sent an electric shock through me. Good night, sweet dreams. He whispered. 13. Thanks to someone, I really did have a good dream last night. Though it was a bit colorful. Just thinking about the embarrassing scene this morning when I got up to wash my underwear makes my face burn. Drake? Heath suddenly called, startling me nearly into choking on my bread. I wiped my mouth and looked up at him. What's up? Want to go on a date with me today? My eyes lit up, and I smiled. Sure. The amusement park was pretty crowded for a weekend. I looked around curiously. This was my first date with someone I liked. After all, I was young and had married early before even having a proper relationship. Heath, look at this. I stood on tiptoes and put a pair of fluffy cat ear headbands on Heath's head. This alpha, usually dressed in a suit, now stood in front of the amusement park gift shop. His black shirt sleeves were rolled up to the elbows, revealing toned forearms. But atop his head were white cat ears that clashed hilariously with his usual serious demeanor. Heath raised an eyebrow but didn't take off the headband, just looked at me helplessly. Happy now? Very happy. I dragged him to the photo booth, and in the cramped space, we squeezed together to pose. Heath seemed totally inexperienced with this and stood stiffly against the backdrop like he was taking a passport photo. I poked his waist, relax, smile a little. He shivered slightly at my poke, and the corners of his mouth finally curved into a smile. At that moment, I snapped the photo. In the picture, the alpha wore cat ears, his eyes full of tenderness, while the omega beside him smiled warmly. 14. Where to next? Heath asked. The movies. I waved my phone. There's a new horror film out that's getting great reviews, supposedly super scary. Heath's step faltered for a moment but quickly recovered. Okay. The theater lights dimmed, and danmaku floated before my eyes. Drake doesn't know her husband's afraid of horror movies, huh? He looks calm but is probably sweating bullets inside. I looked surprised at Heath, didn't expect him to be scared of horror movies. The eerie opening music played, and I quietly observed him. He sat upright, expression neutral, but the clenched jawline and slightly curled fists betrayed his tension. When the first scary scene popped up, I felt him visibly shudder. I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Heath, are you a little scared?" "No," he immediately denied, though his Adam's apple bobbed. Another scary scene flashed on the screen, and Heath's fingers unconsciously dug into the armrest. Suddenly, I found this side of him kind of cute. "If you're scared," I imitated his usual soothing tone, "you can just snuggle into my arms." After a moment's silence, he actually leaned in, resting his forehead on my shoulder. "Just for a bit." His voice was muffled, warm breath pressing through the fabric against my skin. That vulnerable posture softened my heart. I gently wrapped my arms around his shoulders, comforting him like a frightened large animal. I never expected Heath to have this side, I thought silently. When the movie ended and the lights came back on, Heath quickly returned to his usual calm and composed self, as if the alpha who'd leaned on my shoulder had been a mirage. If only his ears weren't still a bit flushed. 15. On the way home, I packed some barbecue and fried snacks and bought beer. These were things Heath usually wouldn't eat because he thought they were unhealthy. But today, I just wanted him to try them. "Heath, try this, it's super delicious." I held a skewer of crispy grilled pork belly up to his mouth. Heath frowned but still took a bite. I stared at his face, suddenly feeling thirsty, and took another gulp of beer. "Drink less." He snatched the can from my hand. "You're such a stingy person," I mumbled, the alcohol dulling my mind. "I'm the type who doesn't handle alcohol well but still wants to drink." Heath's image in my vision split into two overlapping shadows. I looked at him confused. "Ha! Why are there two of you?" I cupped his face and pouted, complaining. "Don't sway around like that." He sighed and handed me a glass of warm water. "You're drunk. Let me take you to rest." "I'm not drunk." I waved his hand away but couldn't control my body leaning forward, nearly falling into his arms. "Look. I can still walk straight." I tried to stand to prove it, but he grabbed me and pushed me back onto the sofa. "Sit properly." I looked up at him and started giggling. "You're really handsome, hee." His Adam's apple bobbed, and at that moment the danmaku appeared again. "What's she mumbling?" "Wants to kiss." "Drake, do you know how cute you are right now?" Wants to kiss." "Kiss what?" I leaned in and kissed Heath's cheek. "Is that it?" He stiffened instantly. Before I could react, Heath's palm cupped the back of my head, and an overwhelming cedar scent surrounded us. His kiss was more urgent than I expected, prying open my beer-scented lips. The kiss completely messed up my breathing. Heath's tongue swept across my palate, sending shivers down my spine. I grabbed his collar, fingertips digging into his firm chest, feeling his heartbeat race and pound. Just as I was about to run out of oxygen, he slightly pulled away. I melted weakly in his arms, feeling dizzy from the kiss. I'm so dizzy, I want to sleep. A low laugh came from above as he lifted me up. Drinking so much when you can't handle it. His tone was helpless, but he held me tighter. Heath laid me down on the bed, stroked my flushed cheek, and whispered, "Sleep now." I drowsily grabbed his shirt edge. "Aren't you sleeping?" He was silent for a few seconds, then pulled back the covers and lay down, wrapping his arm around me. "Now you can sleep well, right?" I muttered a yes, nuzzled into him, finally finding a comfortable position. Then my consciousness slowly faded. 16. The next morning, I groggily opened my eyes. My face was buried against a warm chest, my limbs tangled like an octopus around the other person. I thought I was still dreaming. Wait, this feeling. I pressed my hand and felt the solid muscles tighten slightly. So it was chest muscles, well developed too. A low muffled grunt came from above. Awake? I suddenly lifted my head, meeting Heath's deep eyes. There was a suspicious wet spot on the collar of his pajamas, clearly drool from when I slept. I suddenly remembered I'd probably drunk too much last night. Did I get crazy drunk? Oh no, how embarrassing, my image is ruined. Danmaku quietly appeared at this moment. This attacker won't want to wash this pajama anymore, wife's drool smells so sweet. What will the attacker do with this pajama? So hard to guess. Drake, don't move around too much, you might get uncomfortable early in the morning. My face burned, and I hurriedly got up. I'm going to wash up. At breakfast, I didn't dare look up at him. Heath acted as if nothing had happened and even put a fried egg in my bowl. I chewed slowly, wondering how he could be so calm after kissing me last night. Could it be he was drunk too? 17. I licked my ice cream and told Keith every detail about the weekend date. He raised an eyebrow and said, "How is this different from just dating?" I retorted, "It's different, we're married." He nodded, "True." After a moment of silence, he suddenly asked, "So you like him now, right?" I nodded, ears tingling. "And him?" Keith pressed, "Does he like you too?" I bit the ice cream spoon and thought for a moment. Probably, he does. Though from danmaku comments and Heath's usual behavior, he treats me well, Heath has never explicitly said he likes me. I looked down at the melting ice cream, suddenly feeling a little gloomy inside. 18. After dinner, I sat on the sofa, sulking. Heath unusually came over with a pillow and blanket and said, "I'm sleeping in the guest room for the next few days." Then he closed the door. I stared at his back, about to speak, when danmaku appeared. Drake doesn't know that his husband's sensitivity period has started. Someone's going to be loading suppressants non-stop until they get tired of it. What? Heath's sensitivity period started? Worried, I got up and walked to the guest room. When I opened the door, a strong wave of cedar pheromones hit me, making my legs weak. Heath was injecting suppressant into his arm, his tie loose, eyes bloodshot. He looked up surprised when he saw me. "Go out." "I can help you," I said softly, "I'm clear-headed now, I like you, I'm willing." His pupils suddenly contracted. The next moment, I was pushed hard onto the bed, his burning lips pressing down. The kiss was fierce and urgent, but neither of us wanted to part. "I love you, Drake." He gasped as he bit my gland, the usually restrained gentleman now like a starving wolf. I trembled all over, wrapped my arms around his neck, letting his overwhelming pheromones flood me. The sheets were all wrinkled. I curled in his arms, the glands on my neck still aching faintly. Heath lowered his head to kiss my sweaty forehead, fingers gently stroking the bite mark, his voice hoarse, "Does it hurt?" I weakly shook my head and buried my face in his chest. I took back what I said before about Heath seeming indifferent. 19. Since Heath's sensitivity period ended, I found myself relying on him more and more. Say you love me again. I hung on his back like a koala, fingers fiddling nervously with his tie. I've said it so many times today already. He sighed helplessly, put down the documents, and pulled me into his arms. No matter, I whined, rubbing his neck, you never said it before. Heath smiled affectionately and kissed my forehead, saying, I love you, I really do. Hee hee, that's better. I leaned contentedly against him and casually opened a drawer. Inside was a photo album that caught my curiosity, so I took it out and opened it. The first page was a childhood photo of Heath and me. You were so cute as a kid, Heath gently tapped my face in the photo, always asking me to carry you on my back. No way, I murmured. Do you remember when we played house? You said you wanted to marry me. I blushed and replied, I don't remember that, but we are married now. I flipped further and saw photos from my high school days, napping in class, running on the track. I asked, where did you get these photos? Weren't you studying abroad then? Heath cleared his throat, I hired someone to take them for me. My eyes widened, you actually stalked me? Wait, so you've had a crush on me all along? The alpha's ears reddened, and he nodded. Danmaku flew wildly. Ah, the crush came true. Heath has had his eyes on his wife since childhood. What a divine love story, so ship-worthy. My heart suddenly melted completely, realizing such long-lasting feelings had been hidden behind it all. 20. Our 100-day wedding anniversary. Heath drove me to the seaside, saying he had a surprise for me. My eyes were blindfolded, and the sound of waves gently lapping the shore echoed beside me. Okay, you can open your eyes now. His voice was a bit husky. Before me, a young, handsome alpha knelt on one knee, holding a velvet box with a ring glowing softly in the moonlight. I know it's a bit late to propose now. His perfectly combed hair was tousled by the sea breeze as he looked up at me. But I still want to ask you properly. Drake, will you marry me? The sea breeze suddenly felt salty, and only then did I realize tears had slipped down to my mouth's corner. I smiled and nodded. I will. The moment the ring slid onto my ring finger, fireworks exploded in the night sky. Heath stood and pulled me into his arms, and we kissed under the golden rain of sparks.